Next, from Springfield, we talk to Representative Jack Franks and get his reaction to the passage of the stopgap budget. This runs about 8 minutes.
Representative Jack Franks, thanks for joining us. You are one of only 4 members to vote against the SB 2047 that was going to be funding the state on a partial basis, I guess, through the end of the year and education for the year. What was the reason that you voted no on this?
Because it wasn't real. It's not a real budget. We have a constitutional obligation to pass a balanced budget, and this wasn't balanced. Actually, I think this might be worse than the budget that the governor didn't want to sign that was $7 billion unbalanced. This could actually be worse because we're spending $33 million more a day than what we're actually bringing in pursuant to the court orders, which is almost $1 billion a month. Now we've added billions and billions on top of that. So over these next 6 months, we could add another $10 billion to our budget deficit. So as a result, it's going to put incredible pressure to raise taxes on income taxes, raise taxes on services, as well as create a whole new taxes on a host of other things. But what we saw today was damning the state to the largest tax increases in modern history.
As you noted in your floor address on the bill, the Constitution requires a balanced budget, and as you just mentioned, we don't have one. So how do we, you had said, again on the floor, let's stay here and do it right. That didn't happen. It's not going to happen. How do we ever get, given the political realities that we have between the leadership of the governor, Speaker Madigan, etc., how does this state ever get back to having a balanced budget?
We need to change our reality. The fact is, that's why we have elections. And the only reason this terrible, treacherous bill was passed today, it was so the General Assembly didn't have to be honest with the voters. So they didn't have the guts to face the voters and tell them what's coming down the pike. So instead of making the cuts that were necessary, or talking about additional revenues, which I wasn't going to support because I've got a bill out there that will close a lot of corporate loopholes that will add billions of dollars of additional revenue without a tax increase. But what this was about was really about the election. So if we're ever going to change this, we have to really consider when we're pulling the lever who we're voting for and who's going to tell them the truth and who's going to do the right thing. And people will have that opportunity on November 8th.
What, in your estimation, again, so schools were funded throughout the year, but not government. Government's funded until after the election through the end of the year. What's going to happen at the end of the year when this funding bill expires and we're already past the election? What would you tell the voters is going to happen?
They are going to see the largest tax increases in modern Illinois history. Incredible tax increases, billions and billions and billions of dollars in tax increases on a whole host of new things that have never been taxed, as well as your income tax and your property taxes are now going to go up. That's what happened today. There was nothing to celebrate. There was no profiles in courage today. What this did was kick a can down the road in order for people to get elected again.
So what might happen, taking your scenario, is they're going to raise the income tax.
Yep.
To some level. They authorized Chicago to be able to raise property taxes, and they may go to, which a lot of people have argued we need to do, pass change the tax law so that we can tax services. Correct. And expand, as you were saying, tax things that were not taxed in it before, maybe like haircuts and those kinds.
Right. You're going to see a host of new taxes and fees. And I think you're not going to see a lot of job-creating incentivizing in the state of Illinois. So what I think you're going to see, the end result of what happened today, is more people fleeing Illinois and less job creation. We didn't do anybody any favors today. Matter of fact, we made the problem much, much worse. I'm not going to say we, I'm going to say they did it, because it was both sides. I got up there and I was one of very few people that got up and told the truth on this.
Did we get to a point, well, on one hand, said people just want to go home. We're here on the verge of July, and it's an election year, and people want to go home and start.
So what?
With the campaigns. So I'm just saying. Yeah. But I started to say, did we reach a point where it was just fatigue here and people, kind of threw in the towel and
No.
didn't want to stick to their guns as you're saying they should have?
No, it's a concentration of power where very few people have an input on what can happen. And that's another structural problem we have in this state. I've always believed in term limits for leadership. And the problem is when very few people in a room make a decision and then expect everyone else to follow them, it's a problem. But it also is coupled with campaign finance reform. With the huge amounts of money coming into our state and being spent on these campaigns, we saw today that some people have already started robocalls against folks who voted for this. This was all about the election. And it's always going to be about the election in this state until we put campaign finance reform and term limits and fair maps. We need to fundamentally change what's going on in the state, or you're going to see a repeat of this every year.
Those are a number of the things that the governor had on his turnaround agenda. Where do you stand on the argument that those items shouldn't be part of the budget debate?
Well, they should be separate. I believe they should be separate, and I've advocated for those things. I carried the bill. I've carried all those bills, actually. And I've even passed a bill to freeze property taxes. But unfortunately, the governor didn't support it because he'd rather bust unions. He needed that part of it. Let's keep these things separate. I think I think our citizens need real property tax relief, and we're not getting it from Springfield because of the gamesmanship.
And what's your future going to be? Now, you decided not to run for re-election. And you've already, for those that don't know, as I said, you're officially a Democrat, but you really kind of just follow your own course. And to your credit, a lot of people don't want to do that. But now you're not going to be seeking re-election? Are you announcing your plans?
Yeah, I don't like either party. Because it's really not about public policy. It's about power. It's never about the people. It's about who can get what for themselves or their family or friends. It's cronyism. It's on steroid in this state at every level. So I plan on, since I think Springfield is so fundamentally off the rails right now, and I don't see it getting better in the short term. I think I can do the best for the constituents by going home to McHenry County and leading the county board. It's our first time we're having an election for it, and I want to implement these reform ideas that I've passed in Springfield of consolidation of government and real property tax relief. And I want to reduce the size of the county board, and I want to show how government can be efficient and responsive. And I'll have a laboratory in McHenry County to get that done, and I'm looking forward to fundamentally changing how government's done in Illinois and to show how it can be done right.
Well, you've always been a great guy to talk to. We wish you well, and hopefully we can come up and visit you in McHenry County and see what we do.
Anytime.
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.